Okay, so the Pitt season 2 has been pretty solid, mostly. This is definitely a different kind of season than what I think we were all expecting. This season being set on the 4th of July, I kind of expected the season to, explode into this big catastrophe that overtakes the season like the first did. But it doesn't really. Yes, the cyber attack is noteworthy, but it's nothing like the endless depression that was the later points of season 1. This season feels a little more subtle in its presentation, until episode 11, but that's a conversation for later. The Pitt has always been a show about burnout, the mental, emotional, physical exhaustion that healthcare workers go through, and how they deal, or not fucking deal with it. All of the characters exemplify different reactions to the work. You've got people like Langdon who are doing the work and regaining their confidence in it, and characters like Robby who struggle with their need to hold up the sky, or Santos who this work kinda just feeds into their insecurities and makes them more cynical and more jaded. Overall, the fatigue and overbearingness of the work is always central, but this season it creeps in more like a big sigh than a bombastic explosion of grief. And to my mind, that's generally a good thing. There's nothing worse than enjoying the first season of a show and then learning in subsequent seasons it has no other ideas, it has no other tones it can ride. And now that we're reaching the endpoint of this season, I wanted to take the time to go through some of the takes I've seen, some of the discussion, and yes, shipping, I will address that. I wasn't really on that in the first season, but it's basically an essential ingredient of the show now. Now that we've got that all together, let's get into some of the discussion, starting off with all of you, literally every single one of you, are unhinged about this character. I don't think I've seen since Breaking Bad a community's collective hatred and anger towards a female character. Some of you have truly lost the plot and need to lock in because we should have left this shit in the 90s. We should have left this stuff with Britney Spears, but unfortunately, we have learned nothing in all of this time. Now, I want to make it clear, you don't have to like Santos. Hell, I don't even like Santos. She's mean, she's overconfident, and kind of a bully at times. She is not easy to like, but you guys go to hell to find reasons to hate her. You take all the complexity of this character and flatten them down to just the most reductive, thoughtless thing, and it's nasty. So nasty that I feel the need to defend it because Langdon Army, you need to stand down on this. Your guy, my guy, actually, is not nearly as clean as you think he is. For those that may be uninformed, Santos and this character Langdon are beefy because in the last season he was being a dick as her instructor and she was up on him being tweaked up out of his mind, stealing drugs from his patients to deal with his back pain. She tells on him, he gets banished for 10 months and comes back into the ED, and now they're in conflict because she feels that he kinda got away with it, a fact, and he wants to prove to everyone he's better and make amends. And that's good, that's what you should do when you do something bad, but let's not lose focus. Just because you apologize doesn't mean you're automatically forgiven. You are responsible for everything you do. It doesn't matter if you're going through addiction, mental issues, a bad day, or whatever might have you. The people you harm don't have a responsibility to forgive you or like you. All of that stuff is just context for the people who actually give a fuck about you to concern themselves with. The rest of us don't owe you that, and it's a weirdness that society has with being so forgiving of dudes who do terrible things. Look at all the resurfaced Kanye fans, look at all the Shia LaBeouf fans. It's strange behavior we allow dudes like him to get away with and simultaneously aren't able to give any empathy to characters like Santos. One thing I've learned in my life growing up is that women aren't smarter, more empathetic and thoughtful than men. It's just that they have less opportunity to be messy, so they aren't as messy. And Santos is a prime example of why women and female characters don't get to be messy because you all are unwilling to engage with them on any sensible level. Just by watching the show, you can gather a lot of information about Santos' background. You can assume that she has a very troubled backstory, probably defined by parents, guardians, authority figures failing her constantly, twisting these relationships that should be nurturing to something chaotic, harsh and powerless, and from that she's had to advocate for herself, call that behavior out, to the consternation of everyone around her, leading her to feeling isolated and building up walls while still deeply craving intimacy. None of this is high level analysis, most of this is very much on the tin if you're paying any level of attention. Langdon fits the bill as just another abusive adult in her life who did something wrong but didn't get punished in any real way. Mind you, she's only had 10 conversations with this man in total, and from her perspective, he just gets to waltz in here like nothing even happened. Well, she has been made to feel like garbage for the last year by everyone, and yes, admittedly, all of that is just projection because it seems more likely that her standoffish demeanor is pushing everyone away from making connections with her. That doesn't still undermine that she has no real reason to forgive this man after one day at work for the real crimes he committed. All of you need to take a real step back and assess the situation properly. It doesn't mean you gotta like her, but don't lie about what's actually happening happening because much like that Chapel Roll situation, your need to villainize people will lead to you looking foolish. And even worse than that, you're gonna feel crazy bad when that blade that she steals in episode 12 gets active and you're confronted with the raw humanity of this character. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about Dr. Robby's over-presence this season, something I didn't think much about at first but started to understand towards the end of the season. The easy dismissal is, he's the main character, so of course he gets the most screen time. But that's a very unhelpful comment, a stupid comment if you will, because everyone watching already knows that. The point is that even shows with a clear central character maintain some balance, and it's fair to say this season that balance is being tested quite a bit. Now I'm somewhat mixed on this approach because on the one hand it plays into the overall tonal shift the season has, which I mostly like, but also leads into my biggest criticism of the show this season. A big discussion that has gone on for much of the season of the Pitt has been its didactism, its aggressive need to give school type explanations to any socio-political message in the story. For the most part I never felt this because it was mostly giving me information about things I didn't know, already knew and agreed with, and it's just very possible that after season 4 of The Boys, my standards for what is too preachy for a TV show have been eviscerated. This really only became a problem for me after episode 11, where to my mind the show's writers were hit with the absolutely no subtlety ray and proceeded to vomit out awkward, overdone conversations where every character is just divulging the inner struggle that Robby is going through this season ad nauseum. I get that these people are doctors and being perceptive is a crucial part of the job, but how many conversations did we really need about Robby's failing mental health before he vomits it all up in episode 14? This is where I feel a lot of the problems rise together in the season, where we are having the same repetitive Dr. Robby scene for multiple episodes while the rest of the cast storylines just get put on pause. I don't mind the show committing more to the one day per season structure that they have laid out. It probably doesn't make much sense for Langdon and Santos to reach any conclusion in their storyline in one day. It probably doesn't make much sense for Mel to make any progress in creating a life beyond a sister in a day, and it probably doesn't make much sense for any real updates to the sepsis lady or really any of these patients in a day, but it's still frustrating. A frustration that I'm willing to understand in a meta-narrative way, in which the disjointed, empty, unsatisfying, bleak nature of the season's writing maps onto Robby's experience of working in the Pit, and in a more holistic way the thesis statement of the show, that being a healthcare worker is exhausting and taxing. All of this, even just in experimentation, is something I prefer instead of getting the same thing over and over again. So I'm very much down for this, but at the end of the day, as a storyteller, you have got to give me something better than what I expected. And 15 extra conversations about Robby's suicidality is not gonna cut it. I would much rather dig deep into Mohan's inevitably sad season 2 ending than whatever this season's been cooking up. This is the discussion that annoys me the most because it's pure algorithm chasing rage bait. The bulk of it stems from a wave of essays and videos about Pitt fans having bad media literacy. I hate this stuff because it feels like a psyop to keep us engaged, taking what is generally just a common fandom interaction, people having bad takes, and inflating into something way bigger than it needs to be. We do this song and dance with every popular piece of media. Someone posts a flawed read and suddenly it's a collective crisis of media literacy. A term, by the way, that has been so overused it's completely lost its meaning. What's telling is that half the time when I'm in any show's community, I'm only ever seeing people's reactions to bad takes, never the actual bad takes themselves. When you have millions of people engaging with something, a small subsection will naturally produce questionable opinions. That's not a symptom of cultural decay, that's just how people work. We all come from different lives and that colors how we engage with things. And honestly, someone firing off a half-baked theory is doing something right. They're engaging. TV isn't meant to be a passive experience where you simply absorb and agree. Not every bad take on Twitter or TikTok needs to be platformed, dissected and woven into some grand narrative about the state of media consumption. I respect someone much more for having a bad take than the same regurgitated bland bullshit opinion I can get anywhere. Please guys, let's leave all of this behind. None of these fan bases are nearly as toxic as the people who profit off the controversy. Okay, now to fun stuff. This video isn't all bad times. We've got ships, and again, I've never shipped before, but man, seeing the art that some of you have made has put me firmly into this, and yes, I am a Kingdon stan. I love this pairing regardless of whatever these actors are saying because dog, we need this. The most positive romantic relationship we've got on TV right now is Hal and Lois from Malcolm in the Middle, and that's a show from like 2 decades ago. We need this kind of yearning, this kind of tension. We desperately need this, and not whatever Wuthering Heights was doing. I will care about Langdon's hypothetical ass family as soon as the show does. They are amorphous blob people where no personality or character can be discerned. Ultimately, look, if the actors really want this to be a sibling familial relationship, then that's fine, but I'm okay with that as long as we remember what that means on HBO. Now, this finale had a lot of things to do because this story had been building up and putting a lot of pressure for the last interaction of these characters to underpin all the writing decisions for this whole season. What will come out of Robby's behavior to Mohan? What is the conclusion to Al-Hashimi's medical issues? Will Robby and Langdon speak? There's a lot of pressure to be relieved in just a few conversations, and ultimately it's a bit of a wash, but I did leave this episode feeling good, and on some level that has to mean something was working here. But we'll start from the top with Al-Hashimi and Robby's story. All this season has been this build-up of respect between Robby and Al-Hashimi, and this episode she divulges her medical issues to Robby in a show of vulnerability and trust, and because Robby, he's just incapable of having any appropriate conversations with anyone, ends up lashing out at Al-Hashimi in a way you can tell by her eyes that she will be feeling into the next season. Now, this doesn't mean that what Robby said was wrong. Generally, Robby is always right, but he does it in the least helpful way possible. I look forward to the next season where this will be picked up, as Al-Hashimi will probably be positioned as a more effective leader for the Pitt than Robby, causing him to feel unsteady about his position in the ED, as she is just a way better communicator than him, and I think that will be something that separates her from him in a very interesting way for season 3. Next, Santos, Mel, and Langdon. This finale really broke down what makes Santos such an interesting character to me, because in a way she is kinda just like Langdon. She is cocky, overconfident, self-destructive, and also a person who holds a deep care for other people. These are all traits you could associate with Langdon, and so it makes sense that the show is positioning her to become friends with Mel, so then season 3, there will be a natural tension point that will lead to them to see how similar they are to each other, which will make for a very interesting duo dynamic in subsequent seasons. Mohan. Mohan's story feels basically irrelevant this season with the way they wrap it all up. Essentially, just give Robby an out with Mohan and just chalk up his abusive behavior to him being a well-meaning dickhead, which just isn't the catharsis I think anyone is looking for with all this build-up. I think this is clearly the least enjoyable part of this season, and especially as a sign-off to Mohan as a character, it's abysmal. Her and McKay, honestly, they needed more this season. Now, Robby. Intellectually, I know this is a good scene that caps off Robby's emotional journey, but I don't know, man. I think I'm just burnt out on grizzled older men finding salvation and a will to live again in the arms of a vulnerable child. It's like the only story older men get. Is this what being 50 plus as a dude is like? Just desperately clawing for reasons to live and picking up random wayward youths? Ugh, if that's the future, end me now please. But I guess in a serious way, I do think Robby's journey of coming to terms with the depression was a good, if not a little too long in the tooth arc. But overall, it works. I just hope we balance out everyone's stories next season, because this was a good season of the show, but not to the peak levels that this show generally goes to. To me, it's like a sequel that's not bad, it's in the pocket, but I don't think anyone will be saying this is better than the first season.